Dean of the Business School.
The Dean of the Business School. Okay. How's it going so far?
Wonderful. As usual, challenges, but, we are on it.
Oh, great. Dr. Ayanaba.
Good morning, Senator.
Yes. I guess you've been in Ghana since the last time we spoke.
No, I just got back last week.
You got back last week? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How's Scotland?
Very well. Scotland is good.
Cold as always?
Well, we are in spring to summer, so
it's better.
It's better.
It's a bit better. Nice. Nice to see both of you. And good morning once again.
Thank
Welcome.
you for inviting me.
Yes. Well, let's before we start the conversation, just a bit of an announcement to make. It concerns Ambassador Sam Piale, his passing and 1 week remembrance. And this from the Yale family. They wish to announce to the general public the customary observation of the 1 week funeral celebration of Ambassador Sam Piale on his demise. The family extends their heartfelt gratitude to the general public for the well wishes and solidarity during these trying times. The details of the celebration are as follows. Saturday, May 10, 2025. That's tomorrow. Time is 9 a.m. Venue, the Page Event Center, Dr. Buzia High Street, Sakaman, Accra. For inquiries, please contact the following numbers. Arnold Apia on 0599 457107 or Chris Nana Benyin Iyale 0244 877 647. Further details regarding the subject matter will be made available to the general public in due course. Sincerely, the Iyale family. So that's tomorrow, 9 a.m. at the Page Event Center, Dr. Buzia High Street, Sakaman, Accra. So do take note. The 1 week funeral celebration of Ambassador Sam Piale. And Doc, somebody you know quite well, I believe.
Very well. We work very closely with him. I think he's one of the people we should continue to celebrate and keep his legacy. I remember in the 90s in Legon, you couldn't freely be NDC because they considered us veranda students when you are NDC and veranda professor if you are NDC. But he changed the narrative. With the proof room, you have all kinds of intellectuals in it. And the ambience is very good for people to be intellectuals and be NDC. So I think he has actually created a legacy that, we cannot stop talking about and building on. And may his soul rest in peace.
That's what we pray for. Dr. Ayanaba, did you know him?
Well, not in person, but we have had one or two online or virtual interactions. And all we can say is may his soul rest in peace. And condolences to the entire family and relations.
Well, before we move on to business, because the two of you are persons who have one consulted, and I'm guessing, Dr. Ayanaba, have you taught?
Yes.
Okay, so both of you. So there's this issue. We've been looking at it from the perspective of law, the matter of the Chief Justice, and the processes that have begun that might lead to her removal. For a lot of people, touching her is problematic. Don't even go there at all, because it involves the executive. And there's the matter of separation of powers. That people say is a legal matter, but do not touch her at all. That when you touch the woman, you touch the judiciary, not her. Is it difficult an argument to make that you can't separate her from the institution she heads? Let me start with you, Dr. Ayanaba.
Okay. First, let me extend a warm fraternal greetings to all comrades in the UK and Ireland chapter, and specifically to my branch in Scotland. And thank you for having me. I think that to say not touching the Chief Justice is to say that we have not had a precedent or something like that in the past in our history. But I think it has happened.
Yeah.
And so if it has ever happened in our country, and this is something that is prescribed or enshrined in our Constitution, if for the Constitution barred the executive from touching the judiciary or the Chief Justice, then that article shouldn't have been there. But here is the case, we have it enshrined in the Constitution, and so it is possible. Secondly, is it or has it ever happened in our country? And the answer is yes. And so for me, yes, it's a very delicate issue to handle. Nobody would wish that should happen. But once it is enshrined in the Constitution and we face a difficult situation where the necessary processes or procedures have been followed. For instance, the Constitution says if petitions are submitted, that is the first. So we had a situation where petitions have been submitted, and it is not just in this current administration. It happened even in the previous administration. Okay. However, that process led to a different outcome. Not so. So that provision was already triggered. And this time around, it happened within a new government, and it happened that the president and the Council of State established that there is something to really go into. And so that is the reason why people are crying foul. Okay, it's because we have progressed to a point that she had to then probably step aside to allow for investigation. That is what is happening now.
So you think that the suspension is the biggest issue?
I think that it's because...
Is it the word suspension? Because you just use the word step aside. And it looks like people don't have a problem with step aside, but suspension sounds...
Yeah, a bit more negative or what? It is. So for me, that is what it is. And it's not just within the judiciary that in case of a situation like this, you are supposed to give way for proper investigation to take place. And if, you don't find any merit in it, you'll resume your office. It's only when they find merit in it that the necessary recommendations will be made and put forward before the president. And by that, he's bound also to go by that. So for me, I do not think that those crying foul, that you shouldn't touch the judiciary or you shouldn't touch the Chief Justice, or that touching the Chief Justice means that you are interfering in with the whole judiciary. I think that is not, that's far-fetched. We shouldn't even talk about that because it has happened in our country before. And so for me, that is my take on this.
Dr. Justice Salifu.
Yes, I think it has been discussed in the media from political angles, and that is why we are discussing it right now, because
the political angles.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a big deal. Even our chieftaincy, which is so revered, we inherited this from our forefathers, 14th century, a long time ago. If a chief misbehaves, there are sanctions. And we've seen people distilled for misconduct. And misconduct for me, by a higher official like the Chief Justice, must be seriously be looked at from realistic point of view. Because they will be examples for the rest of us. And if the Chief Justice misconduct themselves and their behavior demonstrate lack of integrity, sanctions need to be applied. And that is why the Constitution made provision for that. And you can see President Mahama'S posture has already shown that he's ready to do the right thing at all times. Because he could have overlooked this and then just move to, do other things. But what is it going to do for, the small people that he will go after? Because definitely corruption fight is going to extend to ordinary people. And then if the Chief Justice is given immunity, I don't, at this point, we don't have all evidence to conclude that she did whatever she did.
Yeah.
But if her being suspended will give them the right ambience to investigate and then get to the truth of the matter, so be it. So that we don't make some citizens more important than others. And getting the Chief Justice suspended, I think the Chief Justice, even if I were her, and I know that this can lead to dismissal, which is an embarrassment. I'll just resign. But if she feels that she can still hang on and clear herself, that is good. But I think our country should get to a point where people learn to cherish honor.
Okay.
You don't want, as Chief Justice, no, she was suspended, she was dismissed for misconduct. If you figure out it's not a good option, you resign. In the U.S., mostly you hear this secretary has resigned. They've not resigned, they've done something wrong, and then sometimes they fire them, but they use the word resign because they don't want to tarnish their reputation. So I think it's up to her to resign at this point or just let the process go. And those of us who are demonstrating, doing all kinds of things, what is the alternative? Does it mean that if she misconducts herself, let's leave her because of who she is? And what country would that are we building? Say that we pass laws and we can't enforce them. So for me, it's in the right direction that the process is taking this direction. We should follow it closely. We should criticize, we should comment, but we should be mindful of the fact that even if the president misconducts himself, the Constitution has certain prescription, and we should follow that. So let's build the country and leave the political emotions out of it.
And I think the key point you make is you're suggesting that for someone like her, misconduct of any form should never be taken lightly. Because you call her an example.
Yeah, sure. Because, leadership is not just, it's a symbol. And it tells what kind of, country we have. If things like this, whatever she did can happen and she's not held accountable, it will not, it will embolden people who will do it subsequently, maybe at a lower level. After all, the Chief Justice did it. I remember there was a time they talked about asset declaration, and was it the Chief Justice who didn't declare their asset? So the people kept, talking about it. Because if someone at the lower level is supposed to be held to a high standard, and then the people at the top of the ladder are left off the hook, it doesn't build a culture of, us doing the right thing at all times. So I think it's in the right direction. We need to, and President Mahama needs to focus on what his job description is than listen to the pundits, because someone will always not be happy. People are not even happy he's president. So whatever he do, they don't, they're not gonna give him flowers. They're going to criticize.
Yeah. In fact, it is their job to oppose everything.
Yes,
exactly.
But Dr. Ayanaba, do you agree with him when he says, for leaders like her, the standard should be higher?
Oh, very much.
So you cannot
100%,
hold her to a lower standard than you're holding somebody down the ladder.
I very much agree. Look, what happened in the case of the EC chair, our former EC chair, Charlotte Osei, when she was also subjected to a similar process in the previous administration. Accordingly, she breached procurement procedures. And the Constitution prescribed that. And so that was followed. And she was eventually removed, not so. We didn't see this kind of demonstrations here and there. And so, I mean, for me, when we describe especially the NPP as an elitist or a party that claims to be an elite party, and you find that their behavior is one of, okay, what suits me, then I take it on. Because they were happy that President Akufo-Addo at the time followed due process in removing Charlotte Osei. And just a few years down the line, a similar process is ongoing, and you see them on the streets demonstrating. I find that very appalling. And like my colleague rightly said, we should hold leadership to high accountability. The standard should not be lowered. And it's something that in our politics, we have really sacrificed over the past few years, that leaders aren't held accountable at all. People do things and get away with so much impunity. And the danger is that somebody is also just thinking, okay, well, if this happened to this, I probably would also come up and do same in future, right? And it would happen. I mean, look at the corruption and all that happened in the previous administration. Somebody is probably just also planning, or if this person could steal so much money, could do so and get away with it, why wouldn't I? You see. So we are setting dangerous precedents for ourselves and for the younger generation, which should not be allowed at all. So I totally agree with my colleague's submission. Yeah.
Well, I do have in studio, if you're just joining us, Dr. John Ayanaba, whose voice you just heard, Dr. Justice Salifu. Interestingly, Dr. John Ayanaba lives in the United Kingdom. Dr. Justice Salifu, now mostly based in Ghana, but spent a significant amount of his time in the U.S., the United States. Now, let's come back to the 120-day social contract. I know that even here in Ghana, we try to copy, I don't know whether it's the American standard, where they are holding a press, where they are having discussions around the president's first 100 days. In the UK, is that done?
Not really, but I think it happens. But it happens.
Because I realize in the UK they change governments very fast.
Yeah. So the point is, would you make it in the first 100 days?
Would you survive? If you survive 100 days,
then you have that.
Yeah.
But
is it? And Doc, let me start with you, because I'm sure you've witnessed this in the US most of the times where they do this assessment 100 days. How do you assess a government within 100 days? Because to set up a government alone is a whole meticulous work, trying to find the right people to fill positions. And sometimes you put somebody in position 2 days after they do something, you have to remove them, replace them. It's a meticulous work. 100 days, is it enough time? But if you want to do that assessment, how is that assessment usually done, especially in the US?
Well, in the US, people cherish integrity. And U.S. citizens like strong leaders.
Okay.
Strong leader is the one who says something and they do it.
Okay.
So within the 100 days, you judge them by decisions that they have made.
Okay.
It's often said that the first presidential decision you make is picking a running mate.
Oh, okay.
So that one, I think he has already accomplished that. He picked a running mate, and generally we accept her. She's a very good leader. So within the 100 days, they always estimate what are the major decisions. And they sometimes use the day one.
Okay.
Day one in office, I'm going to make these kinds of decisions. And I think that was a model President Mahama also adopted when he was campaigning. And because there were so many wrongs that happened under the previous administration, you have so many things to reverse. So usually the 100 days is mostly executive decisions.
Okay.
Because to put things through Parliament.
So what have you done over
What
there?
have you done? What have you done to
of...
demonstrate that you'll be a good president?
Okay.
Now, in the case of President
Mahama,
Mahama,
signals are what you are measuring.
Yes.
In the first 100 days.
If we are going to listen to all of us, you have over 1 million to reverse. Because this government the previous government made a lot of decisions over for the 8 years. Some of them need to be reversed immediately. And therefore, I think he just wanted to give Ghanaians assurance that, look, I am someone who signed contract with you, and I'm going to go by the tenets of that. And you can see that most of them he has accomplished.
Okay.
Now, we'll go into the details.
Yeah, we'll
but
go into the details.
A synopsis, the 100 days is to measure how you make decisions.
Okay.
Your leadership temperament. Are you able to tolerate certain things that, are uncomfortable? Because, you see, one of the difficult part of presidential job is making decisions and taking all the shellacking when they don't go right.
Okay.
So, are you able to act as president?
Okay.
So, President Mahama'S...
So, we're assessing how you handle power.
How you handle power.
Okay.
And then the signs we are already seeing.
Okay.
What you have done.
Okay.
And then subsequently, we measure your effectiveness by the KIPs. You said you will do this. You said you will build a dam. Right now, you can't assess President Mahama on those tangibles because it's not possible to
build a dam.
120 to do that. But he has started doing that, and we should judge him by whether he has.
So the early signals for you. That's what you're looking at. Okay. So the type of presidency
you will have
that you will be seen within the first 100 days.
Yes.
Oh. But you in the UK have no patience. In fact, there are times when I've seen prime ministers come in, and then within a few days, the murmuring starts.
Yeah.
In fact, I recall one of the I've forgotten what her name was. The one that had the finance minister of Ghanaian descent. The Kwatin guy.
Yes.
One budget was put in. That was the end of the tenure. I was surprised. I like allow her to correct the thing, bring it back. It was like I said, the budget alone was enough grounds for the people of the UK to say, we can't trust you.
So I think just to buttress the point my colleague talked about, it's all about what plan do you have as a leader.
Okay.
And that's what he's talked about, the signals. So we're not going to talk about what tangibles, what structures have you put in place. But if your plan is not acceptable before the people, they'll say, okay, this is likely not to be a good leader because he's not got the plan correct. So there are a number of things that we don't even think that they are feasible or they are realistic, they are not achievable, or that the person hasn't got the charisma to be able to lead the people that he's got. So if you set up a government machinery and you are unable to crack the whip where you have to, people will see that from the very beginning. So within the first 100 days, probably these are the things that you'll be looking at. And then the other point he raised was on the issue of executive decisions. A lot of reversals. And like in the case of, you saw what Donald Trump did immediately he took over, right? He had to reverse a lot of executive decisions that were taken during the previous administration, So clearly, he had to do that. And it is the same thing that President Mahama has done within the first 100 days. He says, look, I'm going to do ABC. This is my social contract, 120 day social contract with the people, with the Ghanaian people. And once he took over, we saw that immediately this was unprecedented in the history of our country, to set up a government within this period and to reverse and cancel taxes, implement things that are running within that period. I think that sometimes, if you compare this to President Akufo-Addo, by this time they were still setting up government. You get that. So what I think we'll go into the details, but it tells you clearly what we should be looking at. We shouldn't be looking at key structures and all that, because this is not the focus. The focus should be what is the plan, and has the person got what it takes. Of course, he's an experienced president. He's been there before, and I always say, I think that God in his uniqueness designed this for Ghana, that President Mahama should do one term, give way for Akufo-Addo to create his mess, and Mahama would come and clear the mess. If not that, I can tell you, if we had a president who did not have the kind of experience Mahama has brought on, and within 3 months, you and I are beginning to see signs of an economy that is showing positive signs of growth. And people are beginning, the business community. I mean, what is an economy if your business, your private sector cannot thrive? If your private sector, businesses were folding up under the previous administration, not so. We're just talking about it. So many of diasporans came during the year of return to set up businesses. Many of them folded up and went back, right? Because the business environment wasn't really supportive of businesses. So a lot of businesses folded up, right? So if you have a government that within the first 120 days is beginning to see an appreciation of the local currency, right? That gives confidence to the business community.
But Doc, the interesting thing is that
Yes.
unlike in cases where you could just look at the presidency. So I say when I come, I'll do this, but you don't have this kind of documents.
Yeah.
So I'm measuring based on the early signals I see. So if there are other emerging trends, I can do an assessment. It looks like when you pick John Mahama'S 120 days, you're going by the scripts. Meanwhile, in this, you do not see an appreciation of the city.
Yeah.
In this, you do not see an economy that is looking up. In this, you do not see a leader who is all of a sudden providing some light for the sub-region because of what we've seen in the sub-region, where leaders were ready to invade other countries to restore leadership that the people did not want, among others. So all those are not in here.
Yes.
So if you're doing an assessment of it 120 days, what do you think? Do we stick with this? Or do we do a general assessment of what the situation is? Because in that light, people will still say, you seem not to have been able to deal with the instability of the power sector. We're still having issues. Lights are going off. People are complaining constantly about it. So that will also be one negative that will be on your books. So do you go by this? Or as a Ghanaian, you go by everything you've seen thus far? How do we do that assessment? Doc, you're on the floor, Dr. Ayanaba. So,
okay.
Yeah, before I come to.
So I would see that as the economy and all that being the results of the contract that you have, the social contract. We could decide to stick to exactly this and check the boxes. Says, I said within 120 days I'm going to cancel this particular is done. Check the box. Then I'm going to provide free sanitary pads. Check box. I take that. I'm going to reduce my ministers to 60. I currently have 54. Yes. And so, but the thing is, what is the result of that? You have, you've got 56 ministers. So what? So I'm thinking, yes, we can stick to this, but we should look at the results of providing us with a social contract that you have to say, yes, this is the social contract, but that social contract provides broader results that benefits the citizens, the generality of the Ghanaian people, So if I reduce the number of ministers, what is it supposed to be? I've cost savings. And apart from that, I have ensured that I've put competent people to enhance service delivery. Have we felt in any way that we need 120 ministers today? Are we not getting results? Are times, waiting times not being reduced? Are there not signs that when you go for a particular service, you get it faster than before? So you're getting results based on
this contract.
Based on this contract. So we can look at it from various angles. We can stick to this and just check the boxes and say, this is what I sought to do within that 120 days. And I've done it, ABC, I've done it, and that is.
Okay.
But I think that we should be happy with the results that we are getting.
Okay.
Whatever has happened is providing some level of confidence. You know, if he brought in people, set up a goal board, that then, I mean, definitely is not here, but that is playing a significant role in helping to stabilize the city, that brings confidence to the business community. That alone should bring some applause. So let's not stick to the simple, I mean, for me, it would be oversimplifying it if we look at just this and tick the boxes. That would be my opinion.
Okay, that's quite interesting, because there are a few things in here. You're saying that, and Doc, I realize that you are nodding your head. I'm hoping in agreement.
Yes.
You agree largely with him?
Yes.
On the matter of results?
You know, the results is more of synopsis than it is a detailed kind of thing. Because if, like, to put what you ask in context, you see, the president presenting this is different from if Felix Kwachi was to do this.
Okay.
The president was being more scripted. This is what I said, and this is what I have done. But he's done so many things that's not captured
That's
here.
not yet, yeah.
One of the reasons why MPP was kicked out was corruption. And you can see what he has done already.
Okay.
Arrests have been effected, many things he has done to fight corruption. And the Attorney General keep giving briefings on what is going on. So these are main issues. And if someone else, apart from him, were to do it, maybe they would have dwelled on some of these things.
Okay.
But he just wanted to stick to the contract and say, this is what I promised, I'll do 120 days. So it's a departure from what I would have done. I would have gone into most of the things that he's done. I've seen him demonstrate leadership, show that leaders must have humility. I've seen pictures of him somewhere. He has only one car, not like a long convoy we were very used to under the previous administration.
Yes.
So, and he has cut down a lot of expenditure, donated his own salary into a fund, and so many things he has done to demonstrate that this country needs a leader who is so measured in certain decisions and lifestyle to tell citizens that this is the way we should live. So I think it's broader, but he hit the nail by focusing on the tangibles to tell us that, look, this is what I have done. And many of these things, they are only the beginning of what he wants to accomplish. If you take the ministers are more symbolic. But I have the sense that there's public sector reforms as a ministry. And that will go down to deal with the technicalities that can reduce expenditure and help fiscal consolidation. Because there's still expenditure out there that we can still reduce, not just reducing number of people that work, but going down to deal with them. And this is a symbol that he has done that with the ministers and is willing to go down. And then many other things that he's done, the forum that he created to listen to people in education. Decisions are yet to be made as to what he collected, how he's going to use the information to reform our education. So in general, this was too broad. And perhaps you would have used the whole day to talk about this, because there are things that you and I don't even see at the presidency.
Really, one of the things that people have applauded him for is that move on asset declaration.
Yes.
That at least he got majority of his appointees to declare the assets.
I wrote he should declare his assets in public. I didn't know the law. Because the law says do this. So he has to stick to it. Because if the president goes on to say, every minister put your assets on Facebook, it will also be infringement on their privacy. But my sense was just that put it out there to be like a Tuareg, like a military type of situation. Put your assets on the internet, we all see. But the law didn't prescribe that, so he had to conform with it. But the haste with which he did it was so fantastic.
Because the interesting thing is that in that there are some even anti-corruption campaigners who criticize him
for
for
doing that.
even the threat of firing. They say you do not have that power. You should have referred them to Shraj.
Yes.
Yet the former auditor general is also pointing to the fact that I refer people to Shraj, they do the investigation, find that they have not declared their asset, and then their remedy is go and declare your asset.
Yes.
Don't do it again. And he felt that the president's way is far better. But the president is also being told that is not your duty. Send them to Shraj. Yeah. So it's quite interesting the way things have played out. But I want to go through some of the specifics. And I want to put two together. First two. The first one is nominated within the first 14 days, the complete list of cabinet ministers for parliamentary approval. That seems to be a box that you check. But the second one is much more weightier. Constitute the leanest and most efficient government under the Fourth Republic in my first 90 days in office. Now, that is where you come in. Dr. Ayanaba is a lean consultant. If I say I'm constituting lean and efficient, 90 days, what am I promising the people of Ghana?
So, to put it simply, you are looking at putting together the most competent and smallest number of individuals who can manage or who can oversee the performance within within government.
Okay.
And if you look at the history of Ghana, we cannot say that we have ever had a government run with less than 60 ministers.
Okay.
And this is 60 ministers and deputies.
Okay.
And so that number, for me, constituted that. Even though we cannot say that lean means smaller number.
Okay.
We can't say that.
No, lean doesn't necessarily mean
a small number.
Okay.
There are a number of things to consider when you're talking about lean. So I think that the number he looked at was the fact that this was the smallest number ever. But the activities that would lead to people applauding that, look, this has resulted in cost saving, improved the processes in providing service delivery to citizens, reduced waiting time, and benefited the Ghanaian people. So these are some of the things that people will be looking out for. So
how do you define lean then? Because when we say lean, we are thinking small. So the minimum number you can have to do the job.
You can have a small number, but that small number will be inefficient.
Okay.
It will not be able to deliver on the results expected.
Okay.
And so you remember President Akufo-Addo said when he was forming government and said 120 ministers, he was actually, and they said he needed the 120 to deliver, that they would deliver the results that was required.
Okay.
But eventually, did the 120 ministers deliver the results that was required?
No,
not at all.
Yeah.
They were actually a burden on the public purse, you understand. But here we have a president who has reduced that to half. In fact, not even half. He's currently doing 56.
56, yeah. 56.
At the moment. And of course, and that is supposed to be the leanest, smallest, put it that way, number so far in the history of Ghana. And in terms of performance, we are beginning to see that the results of some of the quick wins, and those are some of the things I was just talking about the finance sector doing so well, and we're seeing the results in terms of the exchange rate and all that dropping, making the business community happy. And there are other things. I mean, the government machinery is functioning, to me, perfectly with that number. Okay. You get that. And they're just starting. The thing is just about two 2.5 to 3 months
Okay.
fully, because after the nominations and they went through vetting and all that before they were sworn in. So some ministers are barely in office for about 2.5 to 3 months now. You get that. And we're seeing positive signs of a rebounding economy, So for me, yes, that I'm working on something, assessing JM's lean government. But for me, it should be 6 months to even begin to see some but we are already seeing some of these things that we talk about. Hopefully, when it gets to that, we can have another encounter where we can have talk about those ones. But
So
yes,
for you, lean is so it doesn't have to be small numbers. It has to be the number of people that you need that are competent enough to deliver the job efficiently. That's lean.
that's what I described
As lean.
That's lean. Yes.
Okay. So not necessarily because when we
the
had
smallest
lean,
number,
was
of
it-
course,
yeah.
you can't take away the fact.
Okay.
You can't take away the fact that to be lean means to use a smaller number, not just a smaller number, a smaller competent number of people, because that would deliver the results. If the selection, when he selected John, what's the name, the energy minister, we all thought, okay, this guy, he knows, he's been deputy minister before. He was on top of issues as a ranking member.
Yeah.
And then when he takes over, he will be able to, of course, with all the mess. The doom that we are currently experiencing is something that started way back, if you remember. And during Napo's time, he says
We had
people should
those
go.
problems,
You should go and bring us your load shedding schedule. Not so,
yeah.
So it's not something that he has inherited it, but we need to give him time to be able to iron. And of course, look at the problems we have with ECG, the thievery in the cables and all. These are all things that he has to deal with. And like I said, they are not things that he's supposed to handle within 2 to 3 months, right? So definitely when we talk about lean, we are talking about the smallest competent number of individuals you put together to ensure an efficient running of your system.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so far, are we in a position to measure efficiency? Because it seems it is included in there. What is put leanest and most efficient?
That's why I just said that for me, we should start to talk about this maybe within the first 6 months.
6 months into
that
the
we should
administration,
start
okay.
looking at, are there some quick wins? You get, and then we'll look at it. But we are already seeing some though. But I think it will be too early, in my view. The point is that we have put together the number,
Okay.
and they are functioning.
Okay.
And I can say for that one, check box.
Okay.
But efficiency, we can still. It's too early to assess.
Okay.
Yes.
To
I
do
would
that
say
assessment.
exactly.
Dr. Salifu, what do you think?
Yes, I agree with him. It's not necessarily the number, but in symbolism, it's very good. Because if you downsize the ministers, it means you can downsize anybody else. So I think it did it for multiple reasons.
Okay.
Although when we look at it, the price tag is another issue. Economically, it's better to have few ministers because of the cost involved. And for me, doing what he did, reducing the number is very symbolic.
Okay.
And for the symbol, we can easily measure. But to their efficiency, it's difficult to do. In organizational arrangement, you have what is called the rule conflict,
Okay.
rule confusion. And most of these things, they undermine the effectiveness of governance. So from day one, I can tell whether your setup is good or not. My area is organizational management,
Okay.
so I should be able to tell that this arrangement you have will have certain gaps.
Okay.
For example, President Mahama has, he hasn't explained why he has created the ministries he has created, because the Constitution gives every president the, discretion. And that is done because every president will be confronted with different challenges. Akufo-Addo pounced on it and created different ministries, thinking that was a way to focus on them. For example, if you take housing, in the US they have urban development. There are a lot of urban issues we have in Ghana. So if urban development had gone with Ministry of Housing, that would have been an excellent way of giving it some focus. Because whilst you are building all over, look at the way we build in the city here. And it's an urban problem, housing crisis, whatever. So we could have highlighted the urbanization also, because this is a modern issue. But since he hasn't done it, they still perform the same function. Sometimes it's just a matter of branding. So he could have done it in one way or the other from expert point of view, but he thinks this can symbolically show that he wants to reduce expenditure. So the next day, if you go and eliminate certain things in other organizations, people will understand. If you look at most of the organizations we have in Ghana, Cocoa Board, one of the companies I have talked about consistently, we can change it to the cash cow, and that was Nkrumah's vision for it. But because of the mismanagement, the way they are arranged, over the years, it's been running losses. And I'm happy, I think that was point 25. He talked about that, where he wants to restructure them to make them profit-making. You take the Ukraine narrative. I wrote on
Russia,
my post.
Ukraine,
The palm wine typers were making profit. The drinking bars, they were all making watches sellers. And then the Ivy League graduates, all with the degrees, they were running Cocoa Board down.
Yes.
What explains it? So I think the president wants to demonstrate that we can run the government with limited number instead of bevy of them, and they tend to do nothing. And sometimes there are conflicts here and there. I wrote an article on it. I don't know where it was published by some newspapers that I wrote it there. And I did my prescription. For example, Ministry of Defense. Defense is a very sensitive area. And the president is already commander-in-chief. Why not eliminate the Minister of Defense and let the president be in charge of it like Achampon did? Because sometimes you need to make a quick decision. Assuming Ghana is under attack, you don't wait for the defense minister to take instructions from the president and go and tell the commanders, this is what the president is saying. He must act immediately. He's part of the president can move troops. Defense minister cannot do that. He only tell the technocrats, the army commander, do this. And then they evaluate it and do the operation. So some of this, I wanted us to kind of rearrange them to look like a champion's government. Like also you look at interior, we've marginalized the role of the IGP. He's a chief law enforcement officer. But the police don't sit in cabinet. They have to go to Minister of Interior to speak, who is not a policeman. So we could have, in US, you don't have to be like EPA boss is part of cabinet. In the US. So they've made it say that who is important sit in there. And we could have done that also and try to isolate the IGP, make him say that you can't fire him easily. And then you don't appoint him easily also. So these are things that can be done. But my sense is that, and one thing the president has done that is so perfect, there's nothing perfect, is to start to create platform where people can have their views on things. The economy, he created a forum. Education, he did. So people don't have to sit at the fence. You have something to contribute, there's a platform for you to be part of it. So I think the assessment is just going to be from the expert level, like Doc said. But as to what it will produce in terms of its leanness, let's do the wait and see how this will function.
I see. Very interesting. And also, on that matter, I realized that earlier on, the conversation was around what are these people that he's put in these positions delivering? That's how come, Doc, I think you said, Dr. Ayanaba said, picking this and going by it alone will not be enough. So he promises to constitute the leanest and most efficient government. So what is the efficiency we are seeing, and what's the result of that efficiency? And that was where, Doc, you were bringing in the issue of the CD and the performance of the economy.
Yeah.
So will those all go into assessing the efficiency that he promised?
Yeah, of course. The outcomes, the results, that is what we're looking at. So these ministers or these appointees have so far looked at the processes and started to streamline some processes to allow for, some results that you and I are beginning to see quickly. So in terms of finance, we're seeing that. In terms of the foreign ministry, we're beginning to see reduction in time, waiting time for your passports and all that. People want service delivery. They want high quality service at the shortest possible time. Are you providing that to them? So these are the things that you see the appointees beginning to do. But as I'm saying, I think that is still a bit too early. We are seeing signs, and they are positive signs. But we cannot at this stage begin to assess the quick wins of the lean government. I would say the earliest we can start to deal with this would be 6 months thereabout, that we can sit down and say, look, this is what a lean government was formed in January, and 6 months down the line, this is the cost in terms of, so you can just say, okay, we have already saved Ghana, 64 V8s, not so?
Yes.
Yeah, 64 Land Cruisers.
Not only V8, the
others.
ministers also get a saloon car.
Yeah, so the V8s will be 64.
Yes.
In addition to 64
saloon cars.
Top
of the range.
These are things you can talk, but as I'm saying, early days yet. Let's have a discussion from 6 months onwards. But the point is, are we in the right direction? The answer is yes.
Well, and I'll come back to Dr. Justice Salifu, because on this matter, and I realize you keep referring to the forums, the conference, among others. Two promises were made with regard to that. 4, with a national economic dialogue to discuss the true state of the economy and prepare a homegrown fiscal consolidation program to guide the budget. And then there's also the one about convene a national consultative conference on education to build consensus on needed improvements to the sector. Those 2 sectors that were chosen, the matter of the economy, we used to be, the issues were caused by COVID-19 and Russia and Ukraine. And then the issue of the education sector, especially when people go back and look at the disruptive effects of the free SHS program and the manner in which it was implemented. Right. The choice of going for a forum rather than just changing direction, what does it really, because if you disagree with the way it was done, why not just come into office and do it differently? Why speak to everybody? And the MPP feels that in essence tells that you don't have ideas.
You see, you can't implement things like a knee-jerk thing. You just come and start implementing. The free HSS is where it is because of that.
Okay.
So President Mahama learned from their mistake.
Okay.
They needed to pilot. They needed to do a couple of things. There are certain things prescribed by, experts, and you need to conform to it.
Okay.
Piloting is very important. Getting stakeholder engagement is very, very important, because they will ultimately be the ones executing. When it comes to education, for example, you can't ignore what other people think. As a government, it's only in third world countries that education is so centralized. So every decision is made at the highest level, and then downloaded to the lower level. So if you do that, you makes people to feel that, let's outsource it to government. Government will figure out how to do it. Instead of how are they doing it, you get involved, and then what contribution you need to make. if you, for example, in the US, if your child is in school, every semester, they will invite you a couple of times to come and sit with the teachers. And they tell you, this is the approach we are using. This is the teaching methodology we are using. This is what your child is doing. So you are abreast with everything that the teacher also know. And that improves the quality of learning. So you can't come up with educational policy without consulting other people, getting other people's views. And the other thing is that at the political level, what normally call people to start singing Kumbaya on the streets is that I've not been appointed a minister.
Okay.
We suffered and brought it to power, but nobody is. So engage the people. Let them also feel that they are part of the leadership. I keep saying, I don't know who is going to lead Pro Forum. Pro Forum is seen as so marginalized because the concept was to make Pro Forum help in getting government in and also helping the government to succeed. So if there can be a way that every minister has some number of experts from Pro Forum who do pro bono work for them to, look at some of these policies and advice, that could be indirectly playing some role in government. And that can help to attenuate the, people say, no, they didn't give us anything. Sometimes you feel so embarrassed because people are looking up to you as a leader, especially in the West. And then the party comes to power, you can't even talk to anybody in it. So there should be a deliberate policy to bring people like that. People have a lot of ideas they are sitting on. So give them the platform to share this. Give them the recognition they need. And then you'll be able to whip everybody together. I don't know, someone will just decide, because they have not consulted me, let me go and sleep with my ideas. And I think some of us are forced to do that.
Okay.
But President Mahama going the direction of consultation, I think is a very wonderful idea. So you don't go to implement something, at the end of the day, challenges emerge, and then you have to deal with it. Free HSS, in terms of concept, is a beautiful idea. America, they don't call it free because it's taxpayer funded. They call it universal.
Okay.
Because you use taxes to fund it.
Yeah, it's not free.
But the free
It has to be paid for by someone.
yes, the free was so emphasized for political reasons, rather than making it universal and say, how do we fund education?
Okay.
I gave you an example the other day. In my neighborhood, they wanted to build a new senior high school. I mean, a junior high school, which is a middle school, they call it. And then they had to go to a referendum and say, okay, we are going to build a new school, and it will cost $150 million. So by this, we are increasing your taxes by this percentage. So the people voted. So after I vote for it, when they bring the tax bill, I approved it. Unfortunately, in our area, there are a lot of senior citizens, so they voted it down because they don't have kids who go to school.
Okay.
So they don't want to pay taxes for it. But it's a fantastic idea to get people involved, and then they will own and also be part of the execution, and then understand the policy very well. So I think doing that with education, it should just not be one night stand. We should continue to do that.
The consultation.
Consultation. I, advocated that we should create even education commissioners. The education minister sits in Accra, and he has to run the education of everywhere. Education problems in the north is different from the south.
Exactly.
You see, so you zone it. You take upper west, upper east, northern region.
But we have a whole structure for Ghana Education
Yeah,
Service.
because it's not political. The president doesn't control most of these things on daily basis as a policy level. Because you have directors, you have all these people. They are civil servants. And if you work with civil servants, you understand what everything is procedure. But if I'm the commissioner and know that this year my region, they didn't do well, as a commissioner, hold me accountable. I will want to do other things, bring innovation. My innovation is not going to be the same as that of Central Region. So you can build it. I believe some time ago, Rawlings did that with agriculture. there were deputy ministers across the country. Because he wanted to get hold of that. So if President Mahama could have come up with that and get people responsible for certain zones to focus on policy, if I have idea on education in that area, I talk to that person. So at the end of the day, it can sustain the engagement he initiated. So we should be talking, and those who are saying he should just go and implement, that's what brought us to where we are.
Exactly.
So he should engage us more and make it a continuous process, whether the economy, whether agriculture, whether education. We should have stakeholder
There should always be
discussions.
that stakeholder. And Dr. Ayanaba, do you agree with him that, well, you hold a forum, great idea, but you seem to be suggesting, correct me if I'm wrong, that the ministers who now have the job of executing should also continue that culture of consulting people and having conversations with experts during even the implementation process.
Of course. What I didn't see in the code of ethics is that President Mahama should have indicated that ministers answer your phones.
Okay.
Because trust me, you have a friend minister, and the worst what we learn is that you need to get your stuff. So you have an idea to tell a minister.
Maybe the minister thinks you are coming.
So
Since you have not been
you are
appointed,
calling the
you are
minister, he
looking for a
thinks
job.
you need a contract.
Yeah.
So he will not answer your call. But on a serious note, we need to develop a culture where I can walk in and say, look, I am also a member of the NDC. I'm this, even if I'm not. I think we should run this sector this way and give you an idea. One idea can come and change everything. I give students an award for suggestions because I've created an ambience where they can just knock at my door, enter, and give me any idea. And when you give people that chance, you will be amazed how many people have ideas that can help you. So we should do that, and people will feel more engaged than being spectators. After we elect government, you are not appointed a minister, you're angry, you sit in your house, and then keep agitated. So agitated, you don't want to even see good about the government.
I see.
So we should find a formula.
Dr. Ayanaba.
Yes. So, I mean, in terms of implementation, it's our biggest challenge as a country. History has shown that when it comes to policies, we have all the laudable policies as a people or as a country. Our biggest challenge is when it comes to implementation. So how do we go about it that we get the best? Interestingly, you go to the private sector and they have all the expertise, they implement policies and achieve great results. And when it comes to the public sector, to government, it's so shambolic. Right. Now, the Constitution prescribes that we should have a progressively free education. And this was started under, President Mahama in 2015. And the idea was to continuously ensure that structures were put in place to a point that we could roll out the program without some challenges. However, the Akufo-Addo campaign team decided to spin this and say, we will do a complete rollout of the free SHS policy. I recall he was interviewed, so was it Al Jazeera or some other international corporation like that, and they said, how are you going to fund the free SHS program? At the time, he didn't even know the source of funding, but they were ready and willing to roll it out. Now, how do you implement a policy like that? You know, we have front loading. You make sure that you have all the discussions, the planning, and everything done before you set out to then implement. Otherwise, halfway, you run out of ideas, and then the whole implementation becomes a problem. And that is exactly what we witnessed in the free SHS implementation process. You understand? So for me, I think that what the approach President Mahama has chosen, first and foremost, to make it a bit more consultative, should be cascaded downwards to all the levels, from ministers down to everybody. Make sure that all the best ideas are put together. And once that are put together, you then map out how you're going to go about it. I believe when it comes to that, you have everybody's buy-in, right from the bottom up to everybody. Everybody buy into that particular idea and how it is going to be made. And then when it is now implemented, I was part of that program where we discussed how we were going to implement this particular policy. And I even contributed, added my idea. So I would own it. So whatever idea I would contribute to make it successful, I would definitely play a part in that. Instead of allowing a top-down giving instructions. You know what the GES, the teachers went through? People were literally gagged. You were not supposed to talk. But these were stakeholders in the process. They said, this cannot work, right? And you said, keep quiet and do as we have instructed you. How do you expect such a system to work? You understand? So for me, I am 100% for the process, the way things are going, and not only in the area of education, but you see that we have a constitutional review committee, we have an education committee, and there's one on the economic forum. Exactly. So, and we want to see these replicated in other sectors as well. For me, it will be the best approach in getting over the challenges when it comes to implementation of policies.
If you just join us, we are talking about the 120-day social contract of the government. How do we do this assessment? And that's basically the discussion we've been having. And my two guests, Dr. Justice Salifu, Dr. John Ayanaba, they both agree on one thing. Ticking the boxes is not enough. You have to look at the results that the government is generating. Do you see results? Which areas do you see results? What do you think are contributing to these results? And they believe that you cannot look at those results outside the 120-day social contract, because it is the guide that has gotten those results that we need. But I have to take a break. But before we do that, let's deal with the matter of the economy, since we are talking about the forum. Already we are seeing the CD performing far better. A lot of confidence in the economy, both from local producers. Everybody thinks that things are looking up. There were promises made. This was criticized by some people. The fifth on the social contract, within my first 90 days in office, scrapped the following draconian taxes to alleviate the hardships and ease the high cost of doing business: e-levy, COVID levy, 10% levy on bet winnings, and emissions levy. Now, and I recall, I think I have a conversation with you. The major criticism was this: you need money to pay your debts. Yes. Any money you can get is good. Yeah. So you should not be the one cutting taxes. Take it all. In fact, Dr. Amwakoban famously, we had a conversation where he said, President Mahama should just, after winning power, come and say, I said I was going to cut taxes, but I need the money. So I'm not going to do that. But he chose to keep fidelity with these promises. In fact, the COVID levy, which he hasn't removed yet, he says because it will go with VAT, the reforms to VAT, because part of the value-added tax regime. What do you think about because the things being proposed as against his insistence on, I told the people this, and I have done it? First, Dr. Salifu, let me start with you.
Yeah, you see, taxes, people have misunderstanding of what taxes do.
Okay.
When you cut taxes, it can stimulate economic growth and give you more taxes.
Okay.
And many governments have done that. I'll give you an example of Florida. when Jeb Bush was the governor,
Okay.
in order to deal with fiscal consolidation, he abolished income tax.
Okay.
And because of that, many people moved from other places to retire in Florida. Florida is now seen as a retirement
Yes.
because there's no income tax.
Oh, okay.
And mostly the old people, they receive incomes.
Oh, so
from
that's the
pension.
attraction.
Yes, that's the
I see.
attraction. And then also a lot of things, because the idea was that if they don't pay income tax, but they will buy goods and services. So he taxed goods and services.
Okay.
So what it does is that once they are buying, it stimulates the economy, it creates jobs. And then people move to Florida, they will buy goods and services. So it created some sort of economic stimulation. And then the tax net rather even didn't increase, but revenue increased. Because when you have income tax, you are doing double taxation, we all know. Because you take your salary, you pay tax. And then you go to buy goods and services, you pay tax with the same income. That means you've been taxed double. So he eliminated income tax and then kept other taxes, consumption. And it grew income. In Ghana, the same thing. The taxes President Mahama abolished, they were nuisance to private sector development. Now that they are out, private sector can keep whatever they were spending on that, e-levy, whatever. And then they can do reinvestment.
Okay.
When they do reinvestment, they hire people. Unemployment goes down. So the macroeconomic environment can rather improve with lower taxes. I mean, he can cancel taxes and say, oh, nobody should pay tax. But at some point, you have to be strategic. So I think he was thinking about this in terms of economic stimulation. But, I mean, most people thought, oh, he would just want to do it because it was political. But if you look at the effect the long-term effect it will have on the economy, it's great. And inheriting an economy that was so debt-ridden, you have to be strategic. Because you cannot borrow to sustain certain things. Now, because there was high unemployment, how many people could buy goods and services? Few. Also, the e-levy, what we're getting out of it, for example, was very marginal. So he took it down. Now, that can also boost investor confidence. Someone coming to invest in Ghana, looking at the taxes, will say, oh, okay, the taxes have gone down. So I want to invest in this economy. So it's an incentive to investors and paint a picture of prudence. Now, he just didn't cut down the taxes and left it at that. He reduced expenditure. Reducing the land cruisers that we just counted 68 alone has reduced public expenditure. He has reduced many things, and that is also going to help the economy significantly. So we need to look at the expansionary effect of tax. Take taxes that are really bedeviling private sector development, and then let the private sector keep more money and reinvest. So for me, it's a fantastic idea. And it's good he did it so quick so that the economy can begin to benefit from it. You can see the environment has changed. The CD is going down because of what Donald Trump is doing in the U.S. is one of the factors because he's weakening the U.S. dollar by all these trade wars he has started. So at the end of the day, we have to take advantage of it because it has made our imports cheaper.
Okay.
Since it has made it cheaper, President Mahama has even gone to reintroduce bringing in salvage vehicles. And from employment creation point, it's a good idea. Because if you don't manufacture cars, we rely on that, and it has become part of factors of production because transport is part of it. So now you can bring salvage vehicles, and mechanics can get some work and do. And that is also economic stimulator. So most of the economic decisions he has made with regards to taxes, for me, they are fantastic. And in the long term, we're going to benefit from that. So Atufosin is my guy. He did a good job.
Dr. Ayanaba, do you have the same feeling as him?
I think I agree 100% with his submission, because what President Mahama has done is actually to give life to the economy.
Okay.
To give life in a different, we must be innovative. We shouldn't be conservative when it comes to the tax system. As of, like you're right, some people are of the view that, oh, no, if you take the taxes, that means you are losing money. No, but now in the UK, people are relocating to Dubai. Why? Businessmen are moving to Dubai. Why?
No income tax.
Yes, because Dubai operates more or less a tax-free kind of system. And people think that, oh, I'll pay very little tax if I move, if I go there and with my booty set up businesses and all that, And so if you look at what President Mahama has done here just by reducing or taking off some of these nuisance taxes, it's actually to allow the business community or the private sector to thrive and create employment in the end. And that's what we're going to see. I mean, I think that it's still early days yet, but the signs are positive. And we would see the results within the next 6 months to 1 year. You would see just why taking off those taxes would benefit the economy even more than if he had maintained those taxes. Like he rightly said, the e-levy, how much did we generate from that e-levy? And yet we had a fanfare. We celebrated a party for introducing a kinky party for introducing
e-levy. It wasn't kinky party.
Maybe
it's kinky. That was a high class above kinky.
Yes, So I think that we should applaud President Mahama for taking these initiatives, and we should even do more to allow the private sector to thrive even better and create jobs for the Ghanaian people.
And thank you for introducing that matter of job. And I'll start with you. The promise on the 24-hour economy, because everybody is looking forward to that, what it can do for us. Yeah. The promise number 7, commence drafting needed legal amendments and prepare for implementing the 24-hour economy policy under the office of the president. So far, have you seen anything that gives you a lot of hope in perhaps what is being done with regards to the 24-hour economy? Or you think it's still early days yet when it comes to a policy of such the nature of it?
Okay. Like I said earlier, I said the implementation of every policy needs to take a bit of time. So your planning process. I am aware that there are some departments that are piloting this 24-hour economy. Yeah. And rolling it out.
I've seen DVLA, passport office.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's better to ensure that you pilot this, assess these ones, see what are the challenges, what logistical arrangements should government, because note that this is not mandatory. Once the piloting, the whole process is completed and it's now, so okay, if you are a private player and you are willing to come on board on the 24-hour economy, that means that you're going to increase your number of employment. I mean, if I was running a day shift, and I had 8 employees, and I'm going to run a 3-shift system, that means I would have 24 running a 3. That means I need to start recruiting, and it's not going to take me overnight to recruit additional 16 employees. It's going to take me time to do that. So I think that, yes, for now, there are signs. We've seen the piloting. I believe that there's a lot of planning and tweaking here and there happening. But let's give the government up to, say, the middle of the year, hopefully by which time we'll begin
but how big a policy is it for you when it comes to the matter of jobs? Because we are told when the policy was put out, the biggest example that was used was the West. You work in the West.
Yes.
So how big a policy is it? And it seems we are putting a lot of hope and faith in it.
Honestly, it is, and it's why. I mean, the West, the UK runs 24-hour system, right? In most of these things, we are always working night and running, changing shifts from here to there. You get that, and no, I mean, majority of people you talk to, they'll say, look, you can't do one system and survive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
you have to combine, and so it's not. I would not say we rush into implementing such an important policy, which would eventually be the lifesaver for an economy like ours, because if it is well implemented, trust me, it gets to a point. You don't have to go anywhere in search of greener pastures because the grass will be green
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that it is a very important policy that should not be rushed. Should take our time and then get all the processes right before rolling out, because it works and we have seen it, and I mean we live there and we see what is happening. And so it is what is holding the economy, because people are working 24/7 and they're paying taxes, and that is what is making the government machinery work so well. Okay, so if it is working so well there and we are going to do it, let's not make it an overnight thing. More so, like I rightly said, it would then require the government, because if I'm going to run shift, government will have to provide security. All right? And so if I transport, you know, I mean, a whole lot. So we don't want this to also be like the initial stages of the free SHS, where things were so shambolic. So I would say let's allow the government time to work through things and get this policy properly implemented. It will, and it is a game changer for this economy. Other economies would look up to Ghana and say, Ghana has done it and has done it well. So let's all support that policy. Let's contribute our ideas to ensure that the implementation process is top-notch.
Dr. Salifu,
Yeah.
so do you agree with his gradual, well-experimented approach to make sure it works? Or would you side with the MPP who are shouting, where is the 24-hour economy?
You know, the same MPP, we all fly. When you go to the airport and check in, then they are checking in you in all this process. And so why are we not flying right now? You even get into the aircraft and you want us to we should take off. You are not the pilot. So you don't know before aircraft takes off. All the safety things, they are filling paperwork, and you say, oh, let's fly. Let's ignore all these things and fly. What will be the consequence?
Okay.
Disaster can happen. So 24-hour economy is a destination. And it's not going to take one policy, one part of it. People look at it as one policy, but it's a composite. For example, the labor law. If you read the labor law, it specifies how you can use your employees. And the wage system. In the US, people get wages. So they calculate it. If you do overtime, over 8 hours, you get time and a half. How do we deal with situations like that? Ghana labor law has not prescribed those things. So, because Ghana, we deal with salaries, packed with allowances. So all this will have to be reformed. And you can't do it without legislation. You have to go and say, okay, this is what we are going to do. Let's reform the labor law. If you also use workers and use them 24 hours, trade union will start coming after you.
Okay.
Because you are violating some of their their laws. And international laws are also there regulating how you can use labor. So all this will have to be really dealt with before you start rolling it out. And it's not good. There's not going to be a day, say, oh, Monday, 24-hour economy will start. It doesn't work like that. It's an incentive program.
Okay.
What the government wants to do is to incentivize operating beyond the mundane shift.
Okay.
For example, if the government decides that it will buy sanitary pads for students, that means there's a market for it.
Okay.
So as a company producing it, I can go to bank and apply and say, look, it's part of the incentive to get into 24-hour economy. They give you preference. You take the loan, you invest in that. You need to now produce on a larger scale in order to meet your contract obligations. So that means jobs are created because you'll be producing at large quantities. So to create the incentive for you to even sell is part of the policy.
Okay.
So government will have to look at all these things and let them happen. Security, like Doug said, is needed. You need to set up security. Private security, do you need to use private security? How are you going to regulate them when they work in the night? There are all kinds of laws that needs to be done around it. So even if we start implementing it and you see organizations running this type of shifts, certain things will still continue to be worked on.
Okay.
And it's going to be a continuous process to make sure that it's efficient. So I don't see it just happening like that. Although some organizations are doing it, the police operate 24 hours, hospitals do that, but we're looking at how the private sector can also be ushered into that culture, where you say, okay, we need to produce at large quantities, therefore we need people to come in. There are certain things we can do in the daytime, some people can do in the afternoon. Sometimes I look at traffic, the way we are stuck in traffic, and say, why can't some people do their work in the night? So it takes them out of the traffic and then reduce the time we get to work. So all these arrangements will have to be done. Certain government agencies, training will have to be done. So because you don't tell your workers, now you work 24 hours without training them. In the West, they do.
Yeah.
They train us to do that. And then they offer you incentive. In the night, who do you report to? How do your procedures? So all this will have to be done. And because you want to encourage people to do it, you must come up with incentive programs.
Okay.
How do you do this? When you are enrolled in 24-hour economy, what is the incentive? This will need parliamentary approval because you can't do it without parliamentary approval.
Okay.
You are giving out exemptions to people. You need to do that. So President Mahama cannot just get up within 120 days and just, 24-hour economy, operate. How is he going to operate? And it's also come back to, doing things for political reasons and not doing it realistically, like Doug said. It has to be intentional. And that intention must be very technical. So it makes the program not to fail. Maybe the program will even